Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate you holding this hearing, and I hope you accept my apologies for showing up. We have other duties around this hill, too, so I'm glad I got here in time, and we'll review some of this testimony. My background's in the construction business, and I've always been fascinated by where technology takes the next generation of humanity. And I regret that none of us are going to live long enough to see where its destination is, but we're watching it accelerate at a really fast rate. And one of the things that I've been impressed by with agri-technology, let's see, if I just look back about 3 years ago, I finally got over the shock of watching a planter go through the field with the markers folded up, and now I'm wondering why the markers are on some of them. They're not on all of them anymore. A lot of them took them off. That says a lot. And received a briefing, I recall, at the Farm Progress Show a few years ago from Monsanto, and they said at that time that they were going to team up with Google operation out of San Francisco to be able to tie together their weather surveillance technology with the technology developed by Monsanto. And so when I began to put that all together and watch it take place, and they've since made that merger, it's pretty fascinating to see that I have neighbors that are monitoring their fields every 2.5 acres, I think it is, in a grid pattern, and they get a little text on their phone that says you better side dress 20 pounds of N, because you're going to get about an inch of rain soon. You won't be able to get back in the field, and the corn needs it. And here's your green days and your temperatures, and it is such a fascinating thing, so much different. And also, I think I go down into my my man cave most every day I'm at home. There are millions of them in America for domestic reasons I won't enter into right now. But I've got 2 ears of corn down there, and those ears, one of them is from an 1848 open pollinated variety that is preserved by Iowa State University, and it is that ear yielded between 15 and 25 bushel to the acre, and then the year next to it is an ear from a triple stack hybrid that is 2015 crop that went across the scales, not at 15 to 25 bushel, but at 232 bushel. And so that shows me what technology has done for our ag production. And I wonder if I could ask Mr. Kimle, what's your view on this, on the GPS components of this, and what it's doing for efficiency, and where yields are going to go, and what am I not observing that's on the horizon?
Good to see you, Congressman King. I think you're seeing a lot, and the story of corn, I think, is emblematic of a lot of agriculture. It's been the process of developing plants that can survive at higher populations, but the management requirements to do that effectively are what ag technology will ultimately help with. When you think about the career of a crop farmer, at least in a temperate climate, you get about 40 shots at figuring out how to do what you do. And you build on probably what your dad knew, and maybe your grandfather knew, what you learn from other people, what you pick up through agronomists, anyway, all that sort of thing. But what technology will allow to accelerate is that learning. When I look at machine learning and artificial intelligence, and when we think of those technologies, I think we think of things oftentimes outside of agriculture, but it's going to be a really big deal because it'll allow us to compress kind of our learning into getting more out of each season and figuring out, is it nitrogen, or is it phosphorus, or is it some other micronutrient, or is it bacteria in the soil? And so I think absolutely, the trend from the 25 bushel corn to the 225 is there, but what I see and what I think you'll see is 300 to 400 bushel being much more common, at least during decent years. And that's exciting, although certainly challenging with what are we going to do with all those bushels.
I have a picture in my iPhone from an individual that I broke some bread with last Saturday night, and the picture is the license plate on his brand new Corvette. It was new in 2008, and the license plate is $8 corn. Now, they says it all paid for that Corvette completely is $8 corn, but now it's $3.40 corn or less. So I'd say, Mr. Ferrello, do you have any comments you'd make on that question I offered?
Yeah, I think, Congressman, the paradox is if you overlay the increase in farm productivity, the bushel, let's look at corn as an example, 1975 to today, you have the same time a declining rural America, right? There are less jobs, less people, less young people. So the challenge before us is not how to keep producing more, because I know we'll get there, but how to push some of those benefits of that technology to rural America so that young men and women can see a path to staying in their communities. We talk a lot about urban food deserts. There are plenty of rural food deserts. There are plenty of communities where you have to get in the car and drive 30 miles to Walmart to get your fresh fruits and vegetables. So I know we'll get to 300 bushel corn. The question is, how can we recreate the urban landscape so that there's economic opportunity and jobs for all, so those men and women can stay there and stay in their communities? And that's a tougher one.
If the chairman would indulge me in a final question, I thank him for his own entrepreneurship too, by the way. That springs to mind when you address that. I sat in on a little private briefing with a young man who has a project of vertical hydroponics growth of multiple vegetables, and I've seen the pictures of his prototype operation that he set up. You can grow about anything in vertical hydroponics, and it's only with the water and the nutrients put in the water that they pump up and it trickles down, and so all of it's used and reused till it's consumed, and it's all in there with lights that only project the frequency or the lights, the spectrum of lights that stimulate photosynthesis. He says that he can raise in 1 acre inside a building the equivalent of 150 acres of crops that be raised out and outdoors. And are you seeing anything like that coming along?
Sure, we're seeing great trends like that. I think Dr. Fernandez made a great point earlier about we need to have more diversity of farming. We need the entrepreneurs who can think of aquaculture, aquaponics, indoor farming, as well as the farmer having aspiring to 300-acre corn. But again, we won't get there until we start to address how to inspire young kids in a school and how to give them a path to say, I can start my own company. I go to these rural communities, you won't see one kid who will say, I've met an entrepreneur and I've gotten to know them. In our worlds, I mean, those are folks we meet with every day. So how do we start to change the culture and exposure, and even something as simple as celebrating farmers who have been successful entrepreneurs in our community? So it's culture, it's mindset, it's infrastructure, it's a lot of things.
I would suggest, as I conclude here, that we look at some of the models of the successful entrepreneurs, such as the chairman of this subcommittee, and ask him to continue to illuminate his life story. And I would yield back, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. King. We have about 10 minutes remaining, so I'm going to be a little less